This is Today as It Happened. Good Monday evening to you. I'm Holly Furfer here with your chronological look at the biggest events and stories of the day. From President Trump's meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to a frenzy in Congress as lawmakers work to fund the federal government before time runs out. So let's jump right in. All right, happening now, authorities are providing an update on the investigation into that deadly Michigan church attack. So let's listen in.
Thank you. I'm here as governor to bring the full support of the entire state of Michigan to this community. I want to thank all of our local law enforcement, state police, federal agents for their swift response. I want to thank local fire and EMS and medical providers for saving lives and caring for those who are still fighting for their lives in the hospital. And thank the incredible Department of Natural Resources Conservation Officer and the local Grand Blanc officer for their brave actions to take down the shooter and their quick response. I think we can see the best of public service in all of these individuals. As I said, I'm here as the governor, but I'm also here as a fellow Michigander whose heart is breaking by another mass shooting in a place that is supposed to be defined by togetherness and a close-knit community here in Grand Blanc. As a state, we know the pain of this too well. We've seen gun violence in our schools, stores, parades, festivals, and our houses of worship. These are places that we go to feel connected, to feel safe, to be together. But today, this place has been shattered by bullets and broken glass. And this might be a familiar pain, but it hurts all the same. Every time. We cannot keep living our lives like this. I know that this community is reeling right now, and I want you to know that the state of Michigan has your back. Your grief is our grief. I ordered flags lowered statewide, and I spoke with President Trump yesterday, who wanted to share his condolences. We will be here every step of the way and coordinate a full response with our local and federal partners. Folks here at the township, at every level, have been working closely together. And there's one thing I know about Michiganders, is that we get through hard things together, and that's who we are. That's how the good people here at the Grand Blanc Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints live their lives. They worship together, they sing together, and they serve together. And that's why I was so proud to see powerful statements from interfaith leaders across Michigan denouncing this attack on a house of worship. They grieved for this congregation as though it was their own. They spoke with one voice for the basic principle that we all believe in, that you should be able to pray in peace in our state no matter who you are. I know that in the hours and days ahead, we will see the best of Michigan. We will see neighbors being neighborly, checking in with a call, bringing over some food, or offering a hug. We'll see medical providers work hard to save lives and treat those in need, with scars both seen and unseen. We will see this congregation unite and rally together like never before and continue worshiping together, singing together, and serving together. Because that's who Michiganders are. We will stay in close contact and continue to work together. Now, like everyone I know, we have lots of questions. How could this happen? What created this moment? Why? And that's motivated by a genuine motivation to understand, to learn, to prevent in the future. But I want to caution everyone. While we are working hard, while the good men and women who are working hard are doing so with due diligence at this juncture, speculation is unhelpful and it can be downright dangerous. So just ask that people lower the temperature of rhetoric. Keep your loved ones close and keep this community close to your hearts. Let's keep doing the work together. Let's be kind and let's love our neighbors. Thank you, and now I'd like to introduce the head of the Michigan State Police, Colonel James Grady.
Thank you, Governor, and good afternoon. This community has been greatly impacted by yesterday's events. We are offering our deepest condolences to those affected by this tragedy. This horrific event is something that this community has never experienced. It is important at this time that we come together to support one another in this time of grief. We stand ready and willing to assist both our local and federal partners with any additional needs as this investigation continues. The Michigan State Police immediately responded alongside our public safety partners to secure the scene, provide support to our neighbors with our emergency support team serving search warrants, the bomb squad and K-9 team sweeping numerous locations for evidence and explosives. Additionally, our forensic science laboratories and our special investigations section continue to investigate the officer-involved shooting and work alongside our federal and local partners. I'd like to take a moment for everybody to remember that last year we put together an initiative called Stop the Plot. While we are committed to keeping our community safe, we also need your help. Again, it takes everybody. 53% of mass attacks leave a trail of clues leading up to them. And 2/3 of mass attackers elicited behavior that caused concerns. So we are asking our communities to stay vigilant, and if you see something suspicious, please contact local law enforcement or 911 immediately. We will keep the family in our prayers here at MSP as they continue to cover and we work together. Thank you for your time. Next up, we will have from the AT. Thank you. We will have ATS Special Agent in Charge for Michigan, James Deere.
Good afternoon. My name is Jim Deere with ATF. I'm the Special Agent in Charge for ATF Michigan. On behalf of the men and women of ATF, I offer my deepest sympathy and condolences to this community and to the families affected by this tragedy, this horrific act of violence. There is no place in our society for this. There's absolutely no place. But it's become all too common, and as we know, we have become more and more desensitized. This community is hurting, and we are here to help them heal. As part of that healing process, ATF has brought in their national response team. This is a cadre of world-renowned investigators for arson and explosive incidents. They have been used all over the world, and they come from places as far as California, Hawaii, and they're here in Michigan now. They arrived last night, they've briefed, they're examining the scene, and that is what they're doing at this point. From ATF's perspective, I would encourage the community not to travel by the church. Those roads have been blocked off and access is controlled. While that might be a little disheveling for folks, we need that scene security for our investigators as they dig out this scene. So with that in mind, that's our ask for the community. We are also looking at improvised explosive devices that were recovered during this investigation and looking towards that end as well.
The FBI is leading the investigation into a deadly shooting and fire at a Michigan church over the weekend. 4 people were killed, at least 2 by gunfire, according to police. And now multiple investigators are working to determine a motive. Scripps News senior national investigative correspondent Lori Jane Gliha is live with us from Denver with a little bit more about what we've learned about the suspect in this case.
Well, Stephanie, he comes from a community that was not far from the church, and he served in the military. And if not for the quick action by police, he might have taken more lives.
Overnight, authorities searched for clues and evidence that might lead to a motive for the deadly shooting and fire at a mid-Michigan Mormon church.
We're going to find out if there was a motive. We're going to go through cell phone records, things like that.
We have an active shooter at the church. I need manpower up here ASAP. I have people trapped in the building.
Hundreds of people, adults and children, were inside the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Grand Blanc Township Sunday when a 40-year-old man plowed his truck through the front doors, according to police. Then the suspect started shooting people inside the building with what the police chief described as an assault rifle.
One of our counselors was up speaking, and we heard a big bang and the doors blew. And then everybody rushed out.
Authorities say they believe the suspect, identified as Thomas Jacob Sanford, possibly used gasoline to light the building on fire before law enforcement officers arrived and killed him.
We were on scene within 30 seconds from that original 911 call. Within 8 minutes, that suspect was neutralized in the back parking lot of the church.
Scripps News is learning more about the suspected shooter as the U.S. Marine Corps confirmed he served for 4 years between 2004 and 2008 with a deployment to Iraq as part of Operation Iraqi Freedom. He achieved the rank of sergeant and received a handful of awards, including a Marine Corps Good Conduct Medal, a National Defense Service Medal, and an Iraq Campaign Medal. Close to 2 decades later, he's accused of taking several lives in a community that pledges to stick together as they wait for answers.
Let me say we are heartbroken. This kind of violence doesn't happen in our community.
And there are lots of federal agencies involved in this investigation, including the ATF and the FBI. The ATF saying that they found evidence of what they believe to be some suspected explosive devices. The state police also said they searched and cleared multiple churches in the area as well for bomb threats after receiving several 911 calls in that area as well. Stephanie.
Well, Lori Jane, you mentioned a lot of agencies involved in this, and it seemed like there was at least a very swift response after that first 911 call. How are all the different agencies working together now?
Yes, so we just saw in the press conference, they all got up there. Even the governor was there, Michigan State Police. You also saw the FBI, the ATF, and of course the local department there, the Grand Blanc Township Police Department, which indicated that the FBI was dedicating 100 agents to help do all of these interviews because there are so many people who were in the church at that time, hundreds of people that they needed to take statements from, and they are also receiving information. Also, I imagine there's going to be some other information coming out, as we just learned that the suspect had also previously been arrested for burglary and OWI, which is an alcohol or substance related charge. Stephanie?
Scripps News investigative correspondent Lori Jane Gliha, I'm sure you will continue to follow this story for us. Thank you so much.
Coming up on Today as It Happened.
The man who killed 13 and injured more than 30 at the 2009 Fort Hood shooting could soon be put to death. I'm sharing my conversation with a survivor on the potential execution of the shooter.
Welcome back to Today as It Happened. Let's check back in on our daily briefing of the day's top stories.
These proceedings will be open to the public, conducted in accordance with the law, and handled with diligence and competence to ensure that justice is never compromised. It is the standing order of this court that Mr. Robinson shall be allowed to appear in person so he can fully engage with his attorneys and participate in these legal proceedings.
The attorney for the man accused of killing Charlie Kirk asked for more time to review evidence before deciding on a preliminary hearing. Tyler Robinson's lawyer says the amount of evidence in the case is massive. The 22-year-old faces aggravated murder charges, and prosecutors do plan to seek the death penalty. Robinson appeared by audio from jail during Monday's hearing in Provo. The next court date set for October 30th. Electronic Arts, the maker of video games like Madden and NFL, is being acquired for $52.5 billion. It could become the largest ever buyout funded by private equity firms. Silver Lake Partners, Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund, and Affinity Partners will pay stockholders $210 per share. Affinity Partners is run by President Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. The company will be taken private but remain headquartered in California. Search and rescue efforts resumed today after flooding devastated parts of Arizona. 4 people died, including 3 in a rural mining town of Globe, which is about 85 miles east of Phoenix. The area got 2.5 inches of rain in 24 hours, forcing people to seek safety on rooftops. Globe City Council members declared an emergency, saying they have never seen flooding like this before. Authorities in the Bahamas closed most schools today and ordered mandatory evacuations for some islands as Tropical Storm Imelda approaches. Imelda has maximum sustained winds around 60 miles per hour and is moving north. The National Hurricane Center says it's forecast to become a hurricane Tuesday before spinning out into open ocean. Power outages are already being reported in some areas of the Caribbean. A North Carolina man is accused of opening fire from a boat into a crowd at a waterfront bar, killing at least 3 people and injuring 5 others. The shooting happened Saturday night near popular bars and restaurants on Southport's waterfront. Police say Nigel Edge piloted a small boat close to shore, fired into the crowd, and then sped away. Authorities later arrested Edge and charged him with 3 counts of first-degree murder and 5 counts of attempted murder.
I'm standing underneath the memorial of the 13 lives that were lost nearly 16 years ago at Fort Hood in the 2009 mass shooting. I spoke with a survivor who was on post when the shots rang out from Nidal Hasan, a man who is now facing execution for killing 13 and injuring dozens more.
1:32 p.m. November 5th, 2009 is a moment in our history our country will never forget.
I'm in danger. Am I going to leave here in a body bag? Are they going to cut my baby out of my corpse?
Julia Wilson, a DoD civil service civilian, was 9 months pregnant and on post at Fort Hood the day 13 soldiers were killed and 32 others were injured during a mass shooting at the military base.
When I look up, there's soldiers running, there's the gunfire, and I see a few of them just go down. And I'm just like, oh my God, they just got shot. And there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do to help them.
That day, former Army psychiatrist Nidal Hasan opened fire against his own military brothers and sisters. In 2013, he was convicted and sentenced to death. Hasan has sat on death row in Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, and after years of appeals, his final legal challenge was rejected in April 2025. In an interview with the Daily Caller, War Secretary Pete Hegseth says he is 100% committed to ensuring the death penalty is carried out for Nidal Hasan.
Nearly 16 years you've been living with this. Are you hoping that Hasan does get executed?
100%. As a matter of fact, I hope they extradite him back to Texas to do it.
The shooting has since been considered workplace violence, but Wilson and Dr. Kathy Platoni, who was also on post during the shooting, believe this was an act of terrorism.
The Fort Hood massacre is still not considered an act of domestic terrorism after almost 16 years, which is the ultimate betrayal. And many of the families of the fallen, the wounded, and the survivors have never gotten the benefits they are due.
Platoni and Wilson both believe the potential execution is a long time coming and have fought for years for government leaders to take care of the victims and survivors after the tragedy.
Not the person I was. That person's gone. The hopes and dreams and aspirations I had went out the door when all those shots rang out, and I watched people being murdered and feeling like I was going to be next.
Dominique Lay, Scripps News Group.
Up next on Today's It Happened.
I'm John Matteries. If you've been on the sidelines for months wanting to buy a home, I'll explain why October could be the potential sweet spot that you've been waiting for to make that offer.
And later,
in our meeting today, Prime Minister Netanyahu was very clear about his opposition to a Palestinian state. And he continuously mentions October 7th, and I understand that. Most people do.
you're watching Today as It Happened, Scripps News rundown of the biggest events and stories of the day. So let's jump right in.
Are you ready to buy? Well, a combination of the recent Fed rate cut plus increasing inventory is making October a potential sweet spot if you're thinking of buying a home. Rich and Heidi Mallory have been wanting to sell their condo for a while.
These are plates of actual real stone.
But that means giving up their current 3% mortgage rate.
We've had this place for 25 years, so the mortgage that we have on this place quite a bit lower than where we're looking at to buy now.
We did the granite. I painted the cabinets.
With the average rate dropping closer to 6%, they decided it was finally time to make their move.
Rates aren't down extremely low right now, but you know, they're lower than they were.
Homebuyers looking to act are approaching the best time to buy, according to experts with Realtor.com. They say the week of October 12th through the 18th will have the best combination of inventory, pricing, and competition compared to any other week in 2025.
It is a good balancing week where you can get a good price, definitely lower than you would see at the peak of the season, about roughly $15,000 lower.
Chief economist Danielle Hale says prices tend to fall even more as we get into the winter months. But if you wait, you'll most likely have fewer homes to choose from. If you're waiting for a lower mortgage rate,
I expect them to hover roughly around the level that they are right now. So if you're in the market and you found a home that's a good fit, I think it makes sense to move forward.
Rich and Heidi say they're happy rates have dropped a bit so they can finally sell their condo.
We're sitting pretty and glad we made the decision at this time.
So consider making a move in October so you don't waste your money. John Mattery, Scripps News Group.
Coming up on Today as It Happened.
But if Hamas rejects your plan, Mr. President, or if they supposedly accept it and then basically do everything to counter it, then Israel will finish the job by itself. This can be done the easy way, or it can be done the hard way.
Welcome back to Today as It Happened. I'm Holly Furfer here with your daily rundown of today's top stories.
We want to get right over to the White House and a press conference between President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Civilization, things that have been going on for hundreds of years and thousands of years. We're going to, at least we're at a minimum very, very close, and I think we're beyond very close. And I want to thank Bibi for really getting in there and doing a job. We've worked well together, as we have with many other countries, both of us, with many other countries, which is the only way this whole situation gets solved. And I'm not just talking about Gaza. Gaza is one thing, but we're talking about much beyond Gaza. The whole deal, everything getting solved. It's called peace in the Middle East. So today is a historic day for peace, and Prime Minister Netanyahu and I have just concluded an important meeting on many vital issues, including Iran, trade, the expansion of the Abraham Accords, and most importantly, we discussed how to end the war in Gaza, but it's just a part of the bigger picture, which is peace in the Middle East. And let's call it eternal peace in the Middle East. So this is far more than anybody expected, but the level of support that I've had from the nations in the Middle East and surrounding Israel and neighbors of Israel has been incredible, incredible. Every single one of them. This afternoon, after extensive consultation with our friends and partners throughout the region, I'm formally releasing our principles for peace, which people have really liked, I must say. And these are done, not just routinely done, these are done with total consideration and working with the nations that we're talking about. All of these nations have made contributions to those suggestions. I want to thank the leaders of many Arab and Muslim nations for their tremendous support in developing the proposal, along with many of our allies in Europe. Europe has been very much involved, and as I was called by many of the European leaders, most of them saying, is this true? Are you really doing peace in the Middle East? This is the most incredible thing we've heard. Some think it's the biggest thing they've ever heard. They called just to find out, was it just a rumor or is it actually done? And then they said, have you spoken to the Arab leaders? Have you spoken to all of the other leaders that we have to get? A lot of people involved in this one. I also want to thank Prime Minister Netanyahu for agreeing to the plan and for trusting that if we work together, we can bring an end to the death and destruction that we've seen for so many years, decades, even centuries, and begin a new chapter of security, peace, and prosperity for the entire region.
It has been a busy day for the president. He has hosting Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House as the two just wrapped a press conference to introduce President Trump's 20-point proposed peace plan in Gaza. The war between Israel and Hamas is nearing the 2-year mark. Scripps News White House correspondent Haley Bold joining us live now with more on this story. Haley was in that press conference, so what more can you tell us about this proposed peace plan?
Yeah, Stephanie, President Trump was very clear that he believes they are very close, but that deal does not appear to be across the finish line, and that is why it is notable that President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declined to take any questions from press gathered to listen to those statements, something that is extremely rare for him, especially as he holds formal press conferences alongside international leaders. This last happening when he held a press conference after meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. In this instance, the president citing the need to secure signatures on this deal first, while Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu notably indicated he has agreed to this 20-point plan. What's not clear is Hamas's stance. The president called on Hamas to accept it, said he is hearing that Hamas wants to get it done, but political reps from Hamas and public and media interviews have not indicated that they have seen the plan officially yet. One of their leaders stating that it has, quote, not reached us or any Palestinian party so far, saying that the terms appear close to the Israeli vision. But within all of this, Stephanie, there is a clear warning from both President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu for Hamas if they reject this deal. President Trump giving Israel the U.S. backing to, quote, do what they have to do, saying this.
Israel would have my full backing to finish the job of destroying the threat of Hamas, but I hope that we're going to have a deal for peace. And if Hamas rejects the deal, which is always possible, they're the only one left. Everyone else has accepted it. But I have a feeling that we're going to have a positive answer.
Now, the president also suggesting that Arab and Muslim nations need to have a chance to, as he said, deal with Hamas, as the plan calls for regional partners to provide a guarantee that Hamas and their factions comply with this deal, but also noting if they can't, then Israel in that same vein has the right to, in his view, finish the job, a quote there, and destroy the threat from Hamas. Another notable point in this, Stephanie, is when it comes to the role of the Palestinian Authority. This plan calls for the creation of what's called a, quote, technocratic apolitical Palestinian committee with Palestinians and experts that is overseen by an international body, what the president is calling the, quote, Board of Peace, that the president will chair, made up by other leaders, including former Prime Minister Tony Blair. That board is expected to handle the plans for Gaza going forward until the plan says the Palestinian Authority completes its reform program. That's notable. That has been a sticking point for Prime Minister Netanyahu, who has recently, as this weekend had suggested, his stance towards the Palestinian Authority's role hasn't changed. The prime minister not indicating that his faith in them to complete those reforms has changed, but still backing what is now a 20-point plan compared to what was reported by several media outlets ahead of this meeting, a 21-point plan. What appears to be the difference between what we are seeing this afternoon and what was shared with a number of media outlets ahead of this was a stance calling for Israel to not conduct further strikes in Qatar. Now, President Trump hosted a phone call with the Qataris and Prime Minister Netanyahu during this meeting, in which, according to a readout from the White House, Israel did make that agreement to not conduct further strikes in Qatar.
Scripps News White House correspondent Haley Bold keeping an eye on all of this for us this afternoon for the White House. Certainly a busy day there. We appreciate you breaking it all down for us. Thank you.
Up next on Today's It Happened.
Law enforcement's rapid response to a shooting in Michigan is being credited with saving lives. I'm Katie Tubman. Coming up, how response protocol has evolved when it comes to active shooter incidents.
Welcome back to Today As It Happened. I'm Holly Furfer. Let's jump right back into our rundown of our top stories of the day.
President Trump says he plans to hit movies made outside the U.S. with a 100% tariff. Now, not many details were provided, like when this might happen or what percentage of the movie production would need to be made in the U.S. But a tariff on the movie industry marks a first for the president, first time targeting a service as opposed to raw products or goods. And investigators say they have now accounted for all the missing in the shooting at a Mormon church yesterday. 4 people were killed and 8 others injured when, according to officials, an ex-Marine rammed his pickup truck into the church and then set the building on fire. Police spent time combing through the charred building looking for other victims. Authorities have not given a reason why the suspect, Thomas Jacob Sanford, did what he did. But White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt told Fox News that FBI Director Kash Patel told her the suspect hated people of the Mormon church. Responding officers to the incident killed Sanford in an exchange of gunfire. Scripps News correspondent Katie Tubman is joining us live now from New York. And one of the things that struck many people about the shooting in Michigan is the police officers say they arrived at the church less than a minute after the 911 call. What more can you tell us about the evolution of how police agencies are responding to mass shooting events?
Well, Stephanie, there's definitely an evolution happening right now. Law enforcement has changed its approach to responding to active shooter incidents, and a rapid response in Michigan on Sunday is being credited with saving lives.
I need manpower up here ASAP.
Another mass shooting in America.
It makes no sense. It never will make sense why this kind of thing happens.
This time at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Grand Blanc, Michigan. Law enforcement there being praised for its rapid response that may have saved lives.
We were on scene within 30 seconds from that original 911 call.
Responding to a mass shooting is a reality for law enforcement agencies. There have been more than 320 this year, according to the Gun Violence Archive, and in each case, seconds can mean the difference between life and death.
Having fast response time saves lives.
Gene Petrino is a retired SWAT commander and says law enforcement response protocol changed after the 1999 Columbine High School shooting.
Back then, it was believed that we would wait until tactical teams could be in place. We've gone to a new method where essentially the first officer on scene is going in even if they're by themselves.
According to an FBI report, last year, law enforcement responded to active shooting incidents at schools in under 2 minutes. Better technology like GPS has helped with that.
Very typically, departments will have tracking devices on their squad cars. So they know exactly where the squad cars are at, and then they'll have a computer-aided dispatch that will help pull up maps to help officers get to the scene more quickly.
Peter Blair is with the Advanced Law Enforcement Rapid Response Training Center, which prepares first responders for situations like an active shooter. He says that even as response times improve, any delay can be deadly.
With firearms, there are a lot of casualties that are created very quickly, and so even a small delay can create many more casualties.
Well, Stephanie, both experts we've spoken with said one problem is that law enforcement, when it comes to policing and various law enforcement agencies, it's very fragmented. So while there might be best practices, one police department might have different protocols than another when it comes to responding to these types of incidents. Stephanie?
Well, Katie, do we know anything more about the motive in the Michigan case?
We don't, Stephanie, and authorities have identified the perpetrator as a 40-year-old male, a former Marine, as we heard earlier, but they say they're still looking into a motive in the case. Stephanie?
Katie Tubman, Scripps News national correspondent, reporting for us from New York. Thank you so much.
Coming up on Today As It Happened.
Their bill has not one iota of Democratic input. That is never how we've done this before.
Welcome back to Today As It Happened. Let's check back in on our daily briefing of the day's top stories.
Well, we met with the president for the first time since all of these issues started, even though we have requested repeated meetings with
Leader Thune, Speaker Johnson, and the President. We have very large differences on health care and on their ability to undo whatever budget we agree to through rescissions and through impoundment, as well as pocket rescissions. And I think for the first time, the President heard our objections and heard why we needed a bipartisan bill. Their bill has not one iota of Democratic input. That is never how we've done this before. When I was leader, we negotiated 4 times with Republicans, and we never had a shutdown. And so it's up to the Republicans whether they want to shut down or not. We've made to the President some proposals. Our Republican leaders will have to talk to them about them, but ultimately he's the decision maker. And if he will accept some of the things we asked, which we think the American people are for, on health care and on rescissions, he can avoid a shutdown. But there are still large differences between us.
There was a frank and direct discussion with the President of the United States and Republican leaders, but significant and meaningful differences remain. Democrats are fighting to protect the health care of the American people, and we are not going to support a partisan Republican spending bill that continues to gut the health care of everyday Americans. Period. Full stop. There's a Republican-caused healthcare crisis that is causing hospitals and nursing homes and community-based health clinics all across the country, in rural America, urban America, small-town America, the heartland of America, and black and brown communities throughout this country. And that crisis is happening right now. And that's why we believe there is urgency to both keeping the government open, reaching a bipartisan spending agreement that actually meets the needs of the American people in terms of their health, their safety, their economic well-being and quality of life, while also addressing the dangerous Republican healthcare crisis.
We have disagreements about tax policy, but you don't shut that government down. We have disagreements about healthcare policy, but you don't shut the government down. You don't use your policy disagreements as leverage to not pay our troops, to not have essential services of government actually function. You don't say the fact that you disagree about a particular tax provision is an excuse for shutting down the people's government and all the essential services that come along with it.
Just moments ago, we were hearing from leaders of both parties after a high-stakes meeting at the White House with President Trump in attendance. But it doesn't appear that we are any closer to getting a funding bill, which means a federal government shutdown could just be a little over 24 hours away. I want to get right out to our Nathaniel Reed, who is live for us on Capitol Hill, to tell us a little bit more about what came out of this meeting, if anything. Nate?
Well, look, not a deal. I mean, we heard from Democrats, we heard from Republicans. Democrats painted what sounded like a slightly rosier picture than Republicans did about the possibility of a shutdown. Republicans seemed fairly dug in. They held up the copy of that government funding bill and said, look, we have 32 less hours to get this thing passed and prevent a government shutdown. They were asked, though, about the possibility of the layoffs of federal employees, something that Russ Vought, who spoke there, the director of the Office of Management and Budget, had previously threatened in a memo that came from his department last week, basically saying that to a memo to various heads of agencies that they might lay off members of the federal workforce as a result of this government shutdown. Vice President J.D. Vance didn't really engage with that question. He kind of walked past it. What they made clear, though, is that they are not seeing eye to eye with Democrats on not necessarily the issues, but when they want these issues to be addressed, something that J.D. Vance addressed during his remarks with the press. Let's take a listen.
Republicans in the House and the Senate, President United, they've passed the bill. This is sitting right now at the Senate desk. We could pick it up and pass it tonight. We could pick it up and pass it tomorrow before the government shuts down. And then we don't have a government shutdown. It is totally up to the Democrats because right now they are the only thing standing between the American people and the government shutting down.
They had some ideas that I actually thought were reasonable, and they had some ideas that the president thought was reasonable. What's not reasonable is to hold those ideas as leverage and to shut down the government unless we give you everything that you want.
Now, let's let's back up here, Steph. The reason that Democrats are needed at all to prevent a government shutdown is because Republicans in the Senate, though they have a majority, they don't have the votes. You need 60 votes to pass the vast majority of legislation. There are only 53 Republican senators, meaning they will need some Democrats to cross party lines and support that short-term funding bill to keep the government open. Now, does that seem likely? At this point, not so much. Both parties appear to be fairly dug in on their position. There's a lot of questions about whether Democrats could possibly cave here, about whether they could abandon some of these demands in exchange for keeping the government open. I was actually just at a press conference a couple moments ago with Democratic members of Congress and senators from Maryland and Virginia, two states outside of here in Washington, D.C., that have very high concentrations of federal employees. I asked them if they're concerned about the possibility of layoffs of federal workers if the government does shut down. They told me that they are presenting a united front. They believe that the Trump administration is using that as a negotiating tactic to try and force Democrats to the table. They kind of ultimately implied they viewed it as an empty threat. A lot of questions about what direction things go. There's some chance that we could hear from Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer at any moment here in the U.S. Senate. It appeared that they were possibly preparing a press conference downstairs when the leaders arrived back from the White House. But at this point, Steph, the headline here, Republicans don't have the votes. They need Democrats' support. Democrats not willing to lend that support. Both parties are dug in. And if they remain dug in, if neither side caves, in less than 32 hours, you and I will be talking not about a shutdown deadline, but about how to get out of a government shutdown, Steph.
Right, and with the House out of session this week, in the Senate, it's really accepting the House-passed version. Otherwise, we are really facing a shutdown. Anything that Democrats might get in exchange would have to be on later votes, on some other piece of legislation, some other type of promise or compromise to try to get something done later. But avoiding a shutdown certainly feels really unlikely to me.
The real question here, Steph, and I'm glad you touched on this, is that in order to pass a more comprehensive solution, something different, Speaker Johnson would have to call the House of Representatives back. They're effectively on vacation this week. They're in their home districts. They held a conference call earlier today, a member on that call telling me Speaker Johnson told Republican members of Congress that he thought that there was going to be a government shutdown. Again, that's what one member told me was the outcome of that call. But look, it would require bringing all the members back to D.C. within the next 24 hours if they want to vote on some sort of alternative to this plan, which has already passed in the House of Representatives. They're waiting for the Senate to pass it. Again, a lot of questions about whether a government shutdown could be imminent here. At this point, it certainly seems like it is, Steph.
Right, and this government shutdown has the potential to certainly be different than any other before. There's the guarantee of back pay for federal employees, but at the same time, there's the threat of permanent layoffs with this reduction in force memo from the Office of Management and Budget. Scripps News congressional correspondent Nathaniel Reed.
Thank you for joining us this evening for Today As It Happened. I'm Holly Furfer. We hope you have a great Monday night.